Well, hello there, gentle listener. This is Reanimated Podcast. We are Stuart, myself, and AJ Conrad, yourself. How are you, AJ?
I am delightful. How are you?
Delightful, also. A couple of delightful people here this on a fine, crispy morning. And we're here to talk about zombies, undead, monsters, creatures, critters, maybe some dystopian future, potentially.
Mm.
Was, and we are excited to do that and also to say au revoir to Daryl Dixon season two in this recap. And before we can get to that, though, we have a couple of little bits of news to discuss. Um, and I will just launch this one, HA, because I don't know if you've had a chance to read through this article in great detail.
Oh, I did.
Oh, you
So,
did? Well, then maybe you would like to launch this one.
sure. So there's just like a little like tidbit, though I will say it is a little vague about when we might actually be able to watch this. But this is like a series of vignettes, similar to Four Rooms, except it's portraits of an apocalypse. So, like four different vignettes of death and destruction, and I don't know, some kind of dystopian future or present, and exploring the different ways that humans respond to crises. And this is by Argentine filmmakers Nicanor Loretti, and Luca Castillo and Fabian Forte. And so this is kind of it's supposed to be sort of origin tales of a zombie apocalypse and sort of four different views of that. I mean, it looks pretty interesting. Did you find a trailer for this, Stuart?
Nope, haven't seen a trailer. There's an image associated with this article in screenanarchy.com. If you look up Screen Anarchy Morbido, review portraits of the apocalypse, you'll find probably this article because there's not a lot of information out there about it. Morbido is apparently a horror film festival that happens in Mexico City around this time of year. I like the fact that the reviewer also equated this to World War Z, which also has that vignette approach to telling the story of the zombie apocalypse. So I thought that that was an apropos and exciting sort of analogy to draw. But yeah, Portraits of the Apocalypse, we'll keep an eye out for it. I would be excited to see something from Argentina. We've seen something from Uruguay just across the bay there. So be cool to see something from Argentina too.
Right. And then the one thing that they did mention, which it said there's like different director for each episode, but it didn't name four. So I think it may be just a split between these two. I'm not sure. But I kind of like that where it's like different filmmakers doing things, but there is a uniformity to this. I would definitely be interested in seeing this once it comes out. So we'll have to keep tabs on this, and
Mhm.
we will give an update once we have, I guess, a way to watch this or a when to watch this.
Yeah,
So
like so many things out there right now. Looking at
yeah,
you, Generation Z. Can't wait to find out when we're going to be able to watch that too.
yep.
Hopefully in 2025. Speaking of things happening in 2025, we also got a little bit of an update this week from Bloody Disgusting, who were able to glean from, I don't know, some interviews somewhere that The Last of Us season two is being slated to be released now in spring 2025. So we have a small 3 month window to look forward to.
I was really hoping for an excellent Christmas present of this wrapped up in a January bow, but I guess I am wrong. But all good. I guess we will wait till the spring, and that is fitting because that is the original zombie season of Eastertide. So we shall wait and see what happens with this. But they did, a little bit more of Catherine O'Hara. I'm really excited to see this and see everybody that has been like cast in it. And I think we saw from season one that there were definitely some cameos and things that we weren't expecting. So I think that they'll probably do a lot more of that. But very excited to see what they do with this. So I guess anticipation is a good thing, as grumbly as I am about it not being released in January.
Yeah, and it gives us time, frankly, because we do have a bit of a backlog of content and things keep coming out that we're super pumped about, like Silo season two. Just saying. Um,
Somebody couldn't wait.
Hey,
I
you
have
know what? You put a
I
fresh, crispy Silo season two episode one in front of me, and it's gonna be tough not to open that wrapping paper. It
I
was,
was so proud of myself for holding back because I thought you'd be mad at me
dude,
for
I'll
what
watch it twice.
I
I'll watch it twice. I'm okay with that. But we're not here today to talk about Rebecca Ferguson and all of her freckled glory. We are here to talk about Daryl Dixon and Melissa McBride. Sorry, Norman Reedus and Melissa McBride, and their friendly French castmates who no doubt all make it through this season finale.
Right. And it is entitled Au revoir, les enfants. If you've ever seen the Louis Malle film, I believe that's where they're stealing that title from.
Yeah, Jeff
It's a
Sable
pretty rough, it's a
basically admits that that's what they're doing. It's an
it's
homage to that film, which it was a World War II kid movie.
well, I mean, yes, it is. There's like a French like prep school or boarding school where one of the students is Jewish and is kind of being hidden, and just all the things that kind of that happen connected with that, and specifically this other child that is kind of witnessing and figuring this out, and it's very upsetting and dark. And really it's an amazing film. I don't know that this episode quite lives up to that legacy, but I get it. And I definitely recommend this if you've never seen it. So if you haven't seen it, Stuart, you should check it out.
I think I've seen it a few times. I just cannot remember the plot of the film to save my life.
Right. And I mean, it is, I mean, I don't know, like it is dealing with just the way people interact in these situations, but
Yeah.
specifically through children's eyes.
I
So in
remember
addition,
it being good. Yeah. I watch a lot of World War
it's,
II movies. A
yeah,
lot.
this one is worth watching. And I remember watching it, a few times and I wonder, I've always found that if you watch things when you were either a child or a teenager and then you watch them again as an adult, they hit so much differently. Um,
Hmm.
so just because you're looking at it from a very different perspective. And so I think this is one of them where I suspect it will hit so much differently. I think pr I would imagine it for people that have children and just thinking about children going through this, I think that it's going to be even more gut-wrenching. So I mean, I like children, but I think it's a little different if it's like the idea of kind of sending your child into like trying to like save them and send them into like this kind of a situation, hoping that they'll be okay and not being able to really control it, I think is pretty hard. So anyway, uh, that's what it's sort of pulling from. But this episode
Well,
is,
I mean,
uh,
yeah, I guess, yeah.
yeah,
I guess there's a direct link there.
yes, there's a direct link. Although again, so hats off to doing that. Lots to unpack in this episode, and what we talked about last week kind of came up. So in a couple of ways,
Wait,
um,
which part? Oh
the
yeah, the whole brother
yes.
thing.
And I
Yeah,
started laughing and I was laughing out loud about it because I was like, oh,
yeah.
okay,
I mean,
interesting. So,
they finally did a flashback to that. That's like episode one of season one, right? They did a flashback to that scene where Kodron's brother is in it, and so you kind of had a sense that they were going to revisit this. And
right. But,
I was so happy that they did, and I was really happy with the way that they did it up to a point.
I was too. But let's get into it.
Yeah.
So, we've got the whole,
We open with Laurent blowing on a dandelion
yeah,
seed pod, and Daryl walking up to him with a guitar, which is an odd thing, an odd sight to see. He's never been a musical character, right? He's always been around them. He was around Beth a lot.
yeah. Um,
So there's a funny ass line here of Daryl's like, "Hey kid, you know if they say in America that if you blow on those, make a wish, they can come true." And Laurent's feedback on that is like, here we just call it pissenlit, which literally means piss the bed, because if you eat it, you'll pee your pants.
yeah,
Uh,
those.
that was some cultural learning for me because I'd never heard that before, and I
Me
liked it a
neither.
lot. And then they have a little guitar singing scene where Daryl whips out his crying face again, a little bit, just a little, just a
He
smidge.
does. He does.
And I'm glad if you watch the after show, the kid playing Laurent, whose name I've never learned, and I apologize for that. He says, "Yeah, I've been playing guitar for about a year, and this was a tough scene because the guitar was out of tune, and it was out of tune on purpose. But like it was pretty out of tune. You could
It was
even my tone deaf ears could tell."
It was painfully out of tune, and the argument I will push back on Yun Louis or Laurent or whatever his actual name is that if you actually do play an instrument, you would not be able to not tune it yourself. You wouldn't be able to stand that particular noise.
Right? He'd be tightening those strings or whatever he
Right.
had to
So
do.
that I'm going to push back hard. Like if you actually could play or do play, you're not going to do that. But anyway, they did that, and it was a pretty rough rendition of "You Can't Always Get What You Want" by the Rolling Stones, and they must have paid an enormous amount of money for the rights to this for this episode. So that is not a I do not believe that is a pretty
Is that how that works? If you play it yourself,
well,
you
didn't they play it later in this episode
oh,
too?
does it come back over?
I think it did.
Oh, maybe it
But
did.
regardless, I think you do have to pay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you have to pay for the
I mean, the
rights.
Rolling Stones have been pretty litigious in the past. I wouldn't be
Yep.
surprised if,
You're
but
not you're not going to do that without their permission. But maybe one of them or two of them are Walking Dead fans. Maybe that's what it is. Anyway,
I mean, Keith
uh,
Richards might also be a zombie, so.
he could be. But the interaction between Daryl and Laurent, this is actually the first really, I mean, we as an audience see Daryl, we know when he's, kind of just in denial or has connections with people. I feel like this is the first really true interaction between the two of them where you see how much he truly cares about Laurent, how he's very upset to be leaving him, but he knows that he's doing the right thing because he fully believes, and he even says it. And he never promises, but he has promised before and it's bit him in the ass, i.e., I'm going to find Sophia and everything's going to be okay. But in this case, he does promise that he's going to see Laurent again. And this is a huge scene, and it's it's a pretty touching scene between the two of them. And Laurent's also handling this pretty maturely. He's scared and he doesn't want Daryl to stay. He's very worried about Daryl being alone, and but Daryl's like, no, but I'm gonna come and find you again. So this is a pretty like hardcore, I think, anchor scene between these two characters where there's now a full understanding about that they're family essentially. So that was kind of cool.
It was good. And what's funny is the scene that comes right after this, where they have this touching moment. Ash and Carol are, she's, still trying to apologize or get to some point where he maybe not forgives her, but that understands why she did what she did. And she's telling him that she's not coming.
Mhm.
So she and Daryl are not quite on the same page at the beginning of this episode. Maybe not through the entire episode. Are they on the same page? But they're allied enough that they generally work in the right direction or the same direction with each other.
But they're
And
always like this, right? Both of them are always trying to sacrifice themselves for others, or I know better. And there is a little bit of tension on that point. I do like that Carol isn't asking Ash to forgive her. She's also not asking, she even says, I'm not saying this, to like, I get it. I understand why you're angry, and I'm not like asking for that, but I am wanting to give an explanation. And I really liked that. It's not it to me, it's not a cop out about what she's done. She is fully taking responsibility, and she's also saying don't take it out on Daryl and Laurent. And Ash is definitely angry, but he seems to be working through some of those emotions. But he also talks about how betrayed he feels, and so that's kind of like, I like that they didn't try to resolve this too quickly because it's going to take time for him.
It does feel
But
pretty resolved by the time he gets in the garage with Daryl, or just after that scene. At least he's cool
no,
with Daryl after that scene.
he's cool with that. But that, he's working through it. But and maybe things aren't totally with her, but he's not just gonna sort of stew in his own hurt and emotions. So. I do like that, and I felt like it was a lot more realistic than some things they've done in the past. So that was, and for Carol, this is a pretty big deal because generally the only person that she has ever really done that kind of mea culpa with is Daryl. So that's kind of interesting. And so I do think that this is showing how much Ash actually has means to her despite her behavior. So yeah, so we've got that stuff going on. We also have Codron and
Yeah,
um
this is a weird scene that kind of comes out of
yep.
nowhere a little bit. That I'm not 100% sure, other than to get them rolled up by the pouvoir, what the purpose was, why they went and found this new set. They show up at this chateau and Falou and two other people, former Union people, I guess. One of them we've seen before, but she has no lines in this scene and then disappears for the rest of the episode and maybe the series.
Yeah,
And then Aquila, who is now going to be Falu's love interest, which just it happens very
so
quickly, and
fast.
and they're basically married by the end of the episode. And then Kodron is there too, and they are there to get medication or supplies, I guess. And there's some this is all in French, right? Because there's just four French people together talking, which is I like these scenes. It's weird when they have Anna speaking English later with Jacinta. I feel like Anna might be Russian originally, but she's lived in. I assume that she's got French down, but maybe the actor doesn't. Um, so there's some interesting scenes here, but again, I'm not sure what it's doing for the plot, other than when they get arrested or held up by the pouvoir.
Yeah, I think this is really just to bring the pouvoir back into it, and I agree with you. And I thought the same thing. This was seemed kind of like a throwaway scene, but I think it's also to establish whatever's going on
With
with
Aquila.
Falou to
Yeah,
kind of just sort of soften the ground there between him and Aquila and just sort of and I mean we even have Kodron say, "Oh, love at first sight." So it's like, "Oh, well, there you go."
yeah.
Um
And Kodron
but
is more and more kind of like the actor. I think his name is Jermaine Levy. It he's just smiley, he's friendly, he's a nice guy. He's like completely turned around in these scenes at least. So yeah, Akila and Felou talk about their like immigration stories. She came from Morocco, I want to say. He came from Cameroon. There's some interesting stuff, well, later that they where they talk about. Falou shares some stories about his experience in Paris pre-apocalypse, which I thought were actually pretty compelling. Yeah, so Sabine shows up in this scene with Kodron and them. Aquila saves their butts, saves Falou and Kodron. The other person has left. I forget her name. She had like a braid. She had lines, and she was like, "Daryl, you made it," in like
and then
one
nothing.
episode, and then that's it. Maybe she'll show up in Spain or in England or something. That would be weird. But so Aquila saves their butts. Sabine is there and then gets away. And then I feel like Sabine is in one or two scenes later with Anna in Paris. So she is getting around.
Hmm.
Sabine is, but then also zero conclusion for her story in this
Yeah, I think she's
episode.
gonna pop up again, maybe somewhere.
I don't know. That didn't seem like we didn't even get a scene with her at the Hippodrome, did we?
I don't know, but she slips away pretty easily in this little and she's not super stealthy, which I think is kind of funny. That she just kind of is like ambles away without much, and they're just kind of let her go, which I
Yeah,
thought
they're just like,
kind of
eh,
funny.
it's fine. I mean, who knows if the girl outside with the horses is even alive? Maybe they killed her getting in there.
Maybe.
Nobody mentions that.
But yeah, that was interesting. So maybe she'll pop up again, but maybe they're just resolving that. But I felt like she was just kind of I don't want to say they threw away like her storyline, but she was just definitely not um as present as I thought she might have been at the end of this. I
Yeah,
kind of thought she was going to take over the whole thing and just keep driving it, but that
right.
just seemed to happen.
Yeah,
So,
it is strange. I mean, she's clearly there to. to show another angle to the pouvoir that's not Caudron and not Genet in a leadership position. She's there to help ease that transition from pouvoir to union, I guess, when Losang no, when Genet dies. But then that's it. Like they had no more use for her after that, other than showing up to mustache twirl a little bit here and there. Just I don't know, it's odd. But
Yeah.
I guess she that character had only a couple of applications, and then once they were done with her, kind of like the braided guard, they were like, "You're out of here, get out of here." Maybe they
Yeah.
will show up. Maybe those two will both show up in season three. Back at the hangar, um, Laurent is talking to Carol while Ash and Daryl are now away. They've like all traded partners. And
Mhm.
so they all get a little dialogue together. And Laurent has some interesting insights here, which Carol remarks upon when he's just like, "Hey, you know what? It's bad to lie, but I'm glad you did because
Yep.
this is why we are where we are." And Carol's like, "You're a weird kid."
Yep, pretty much. But she kind of likes him. It's kind of hard not to like him.
Yeah,
So he's not annoying. He's a pretty good kid.
that's true. He is the least annoying teenage child in a horror movie or show that we have, one of the least annoying that we
One of
have
the
seen.
least annoying.
Because he did have like cutting the barge away in season one was kind of a, gosh darn it, Laurent, why you gotta
Like,
make Daryl act like his
yeah.
father?
Yeah, no kidding.
Um, and down in the garage, Ash is looking for pipe, some tubing to help make the plane fly faster, further, longer to get all the way across the Atlantic in one go. Which is great. I'm so happy for the show with their complete disregard for physics. And but Daryl's trying to like, just make conversation. And they have that really kind of, I found it quite heartbreaking, that conversation about, if you lose your husband or wife, you're a widow or a widower. If you're a parent and you lose your child, there's no word for that. And Daryl's like, it was too painful to put a word to it. And I was like, God damn it, Daryl. Now you're gonna make me cry with my Norman Reedus crying face.
I know. That was pretty good.
Yeah. And so at first, when this next bit happened, like Ash is about to go through this gate, and Daryl is like, "Wait, whoa, 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 whoa!" One zombie comes around a car, and Daryl's like, "Let's get back out of here," and he closes the gate. And Ash is grateful, and is like, I forget exactly what he says, but he's just like, "We're cool now. Let's leave." And were you confused by this scene, or did you have your H.A. Conrad foresight, and you were like, "This is going to come back later"?
I felt like it was gonna come back later,
Of course, of
but
course. I was just like, why would Daryl run away from one zombie? That doesn't, and it didn't even look like one of the burning ones in the dark. At least I couldn't see the black veins, so it was just like, "Ooh, this is odd." Daryl's not
yeah,
afraid of one zombie, even one burning one. He's managed to deal with them before.
yeah.
Anyway,
I don't know.
so they kind of they backed out of there, and then we have a scene with Anna. This is the scene where Anna and her new friend, who we've never seen before, this actor who's just like a hot lady sitting next to her in her car. They're speaking in English. Anna apparently, maybe she never had a scene in French because she was with Quinn before.
Yeah, I don't know.
So maybe this actor just doesn't speak French, which is fine because we've got a bunch of Americans running around not speaking French on this show too.
True.
But they get pulled over by a bunch of pouvoir, including Sabine, who is just pops up here.
Yep.
Anna's a pretty cool customer, I would say, throughout this episode.
Yep.
I think they actually made her a lot cooler since season one.
They did. They give her a little more depth, and they keep calling back her like motivations, and I do, I get why they do it, but she's definitely in similar to Caudron. She really connected with Laurent. She felt really badly, I think, about what had happened, and so you do see her calling back to that. And but you wouldn't, you as the audience know it, but nobody else does because she still keeps a pretty good poker face, and she also really does a good job at basically saying, "Oh, I don't have connections with anybody." They threaten the person that's traveling with her, and I forget that person's name,
She
sorry.
didn't have a name, I don't think.
And she's like, "Well, it's a good thing I don't have friends," or something like that.
Which is,
But
I mean, I believe her when she says that, but she
yep,
certainly seems to treat Daryl as a friend, given all of the sacrifices and things she
yep.
gives up and does for him in this season.
But see, I don't think she's doing it for Daryl. I think she's doing it for Laurent. And they kind
Maybe. But I'd
Doc,
also, yeah, I mean, they granted she and Laurent shared a candy once. They spent 5 minutes together in Quinn's office. I
right?
just don't think that I don't really believe that the
But they had that whole conversation.
foundation was built there.
They had that whole conversation about the Eiffel Tower.
She's just trying
With
to get rid of him at that point.
she was, but they still, she that resonated, and that they call that back when she sees that poster picture of the Eiffel Tower later, and that sort of, I think she makes somewhat of a snap decision, although I think she's always trying to plan to lead them astray. I don't know that she necessarily knew it was going to work out, but I do think she made a decision and was going to like, okay, I'm just going to do this. Um, and even though that might end up badly for her, but she's, convincing enough with them that they do think that she wants the plane and that she's going to take them to be able to capture Laurent.
Yeah,
So,
I believe that she wanted the plane. Obviously, when she hesitates at the top of the stairs going down and Jacinta's like, "You are in the front." I
yep.
think she knows the gig is up, if there ever was a gig. I'd be kind of surprised if she knew that there were zombies in this garage. Maybe
I
she
mean,
would because she's like
I
this
think she kind
information
of,
broker,
yeah,
but it doesn't feel like she gets out that much. I mean, she's walking around out there in heels.
true.
It doesn't she doesn't feel necessarily like the kind of person who lives the zombie apocalypse lifestyle. She
I
might
think,
she
I think she has hidden depths, but agree. I think she's used to having other people kind of dispatch these things for her, so she's not been out in the wild in a while.
Yeah. And how long has it been since she was just like Quinn's girlfriend and not in charge? She hasn't been in charge for that long, is all. I mean,
Right,
like it's been 3 weeks. It was 3 weeks that Laurent and Daryl were training, right, since season
right.
one. So it's only been 3.5 weeks. But I don't know. Maybe she's a fast learner. Yeah. So Jacinta makes her go down first. Also, Carol has given back Daryl his crossbow, which he's really excited to get, and I like that. Um,
I also like that she said that she was only allowed one carry-on, which was pretty funny.
yeah,
Uh,
that was
in
funny.
the planes, that was pretty good. And it's nice to see him reunited with it, so that's kind of fun.
Carol
Um,
and Daryl have their I'm staying, no, I'm staying argument. And Ash, who is, like I said, he's kind of turned a corner since being down in the garage. He
mhm.
says that Daryl should stay, which means he wants Carol to come with him, which to me feels like a complete acceptance of everything that has gone before.
Yeah. Um, and he
And
also makes
yeah,
some good arguments for it that Daryl has been here, he knows the
yeah,
country better, and he actually like has been able to survive. And so I think Ash is coming over to an acceptance. I don't think he's fully forgiven her, and I think they still have some stuff to hash out, but he's at least gotten past the level of anger and betrayal that he was feeling before,
yeah,
which I do like. And so it shows that he's actually, at least her apology and explanation had some impact on him, but it isn't, but I like that it's definitely not fully healed and that he's clear about that. So that's kind of good. I also think that with Laurent, there is, he lost his son, and there is a chance here to help somebody else. And it's again, Laurent's not annoying. He is definitely a special human, and so I think that that's resonating with him as well. So,
yeah.
so that's kind of cool.
They are interrupted in this quiet contemplation by the arrival of Falou and Kodran.
Yep.
I don't was Aquila in this scene? No, she
I
wasn't
don't think
actually.
she was.
She wasn't. Yeah, that's kind of odd. I wonder where she went. Maybe she and the other girl went somewhere else to the rooftop community for some reason or something. But Kodran and Falou were like, "Oh, the Guerriers, the Pouvoir are coming. You gotta go." And so they wheel the plane outside. They got to do some pre-flight checks. Everything that Ash does takes too long in these couple of
There's a
sequences.
lot of things he's got to do, but
I mean, clearly, yeah, he's had a couple weeks to do pre-flight checks. I feel like. I mean, granted, he was stuck in a car for
he's also trying to like tape together stuff with like duct tape and stuff. Like it's not,
no,
this is
speed
not
tape. It's totally fine to do that with airplanes. I used to fly around in airplanes taped together.
hmm
Totally
hmm
cool. Uh, and this is where Jacinta and Anna are starting to go through the garage. And now I this is where I had my aha. Oh, that's the same gate where Ash was. And so I
Yep.
it all came together for me there. H.A. Conrad was like, yes, exactly. As I saw it in my vision, this is how it was preordained to be.
Yep.
Anna does smile when she hears the zombies. Jacinta gets bitten immediately,
Yep.
and all of her people just start freaking out.
Hmm.
And it's kind of great. It's a nice little combat scene. Um, but it doesn't end well for Anna, who gets locked in, sort of, and then she just stands there and
Lets them do it. It's weird.
stares at Jacinta while she gets eaten. Yeah.
It's cold. It's cold. She's just like stone cold while she watches it. She's just like, I'm too tough. Um, and I think I will say I wish that they had kept her around because I do think her character is interesting, but I guess this is just played out and they're just kind of getting rid of this entire cast for the most part for the next
Yeah,
season.
it's a bit of a
Um,
clearinghouse, isn't it?
yep.
She
Um,
one of her last words, I think, is Dixon will kill you.
yep. And I will say that I was entirely terrified for both Kodron and Falu.
Oh yeah.
uh, During this. I was like, oh, once she was gone, I'm like, oh, this is not going to bode well for everybody else.
Yeah. No,
When she
there was
and
no way in my head that Falou was getting out of this episode
oh,
alive. Or Kodron.
I really thought he was done for. And I also thought he was done for because of the connection we saw between him and Aquila, and they're like building that up, and I was like, oh no,
Uh-huh.
this
All
is
he
not
had to
good.
do would be like, "No, we're better than this," or some speech like
Right.
that, and then he would have been for sure dead. But
I
he
know.
never said those fateful words.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the Jacinta has been bitten on the arm. She's not rushing to get her arm cut off, so she's kind of just committed to
To this
die.
path, which I'm like, why wouldn't you get your arm cut off? That's what people do. You're
I
tough,
mean,
you know
if
it.
she were to do that, she basically can't lead this group of soldiers anymore, I guess. And then they certainly haven't. Sabine's not with them, I feel like, at this point. So nobody else could lead because none of them have speaking lines. They're extras, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, our team of heroes hold them off. Carol gets in the plane. Kudran, Falu, and Daryl are like using a starting gate from the Hippodrome. This is a great set, by the way. Apparently, it's the real Paris Hippodrome that has been abandoned for 30 years, and I think they make pretty good use of this area. Um, because it also works as a landing strip for a little airplane like the one they have. And they hold them off. Kodron's throwing grenades, firing his little machine gun on Otto with one hand because his other arm is in a sling, and he's just killing not hundreds, but he kills people left and right in this scene.
Yep.
It's pretty cool, though. Yeah. So here's a frustrating part: is Ash pulls up on the runway. He's taxied. He's lined up. All he has to like, there's such a thing as a rolling takeoff. You don't have to sit at the end of the runway and think
Right.
about things for so
Weird.
long. If Falu
So
or Kodron had been killed during this pause, I would have been like, Ash is a dick. Why did he do that?
I don't want to say it felt contrived, but it did feel a little bit more fraught than it needed to. However, I will say this was like a really fun sequence and fun scene, and I did enjoy all the things that happened in it.
Yeah. It was fun
The
to watch the behind the scenes with the director
yeah.
being like, or no, the guy who played Kodron is like, that's a real plane. This is crazy.
Yep, I know that was cute. And then also just yeah, this was just I don't know, just like a kind of a fun thing with the practicalities of trying to work with I mean the plane actually does fly, so they had to time all this stuff and then they had the stunts and the little like the explosions and things like that and they had to time everything really well.
Yeah.
And they were even talking about the area that they were in, which is I mean it is as desolate as it looked, which is just this um just a racetrack and but everything's just kind of falling apart. It really did lend itself to this kind of like um fun little like sequence. And I do like that this is how it ended. So there's a lot leading up to this. There's a lot with Laurent getting in the plane and Ash and Carol are like ready to go and finally everything's coming together. but there is a lot of drama just with the pouvoir chasing after the plane, targeting it. So we've got people on bikes, we've got Daryl and Falou and Caudron trying to like hold off everybody until the plane can get into the air. So I did like the tension that this brought. And I did especially like the ending of this sequence.
That Carol had
So,
secretly gotten out of the airplane.
yep.
I mean, I
I don't
could see
know.
how she could have done it. It's still, yeah, I guess it was kind of necessary. Daryl could have got that guy. I don't know. She didn't need to get out of the plane. I was a
Well,
little bit concerned that how the hell is Ash going to find the Commonwealth? But neither of those two have ever been there, who are in the plane now.
yeah.
So good luck. Maybe she gave them an address. I don't know. Uh, so that was a bit troubling. I was also concerned that the guys chasing after the plane were sure happy to shoot at it, knowing that Laurent was in there, and I don't know that Jacinta would have been cool with
Yeah,
that.
I was admittedly a little puzzled about that part, and that was actually a note that I wrote is like, why are they potentially going to kill Laurent? Right? Like this seemed kind of odd to be because they're not like maybe their ideas to get rid of the plane and to decapacitate it. But then again, this is such a valuable thing to have. It just that to me felt a little it didn't make sense to me. But you know,
Yeah.
I guess there's some maybe it's like if we can't have him, nobody can. I don't know.
Yeah, they never say that out loud if that is what they end up thinking. But maybe if they just gave him, if they wounded him really badly and then got him bitten by a zombie and then could parade him around in front of their followers, then we would still get the outcome that they were hoping for. Um, but either way, so the plane is able to take off thanks to a sniper shot from Carol, does a quick loop or a turn over the hippodrome. Daryl gets to wave at Laurent in the window, and then they're
Mhm.
off. Flying. I'm gonna say it looks like they're going east, which is the wrong direction. Because they're west. It doesn't matter, but yeah, it certainly looks like they're flying toward or east of downtown Paris when they were on the west side of Paris. It's fine. I'll get over it. But that's kind of like, all right, episode's over. Maybe the season's over. Maybe that's the end of everything. But no, it's
But
not.
no.
Also, we do have a scene of Jacinta continuing to have just this crisis. She's like, I've got a burned zombie handprint on my face. I've been bitten on my arm. There goes Laurent. She looks at her gun. She's starting to raise it up. We cut to Daryl and Carol, I want to say, and we hear the gunshot. So we can assume that Jacinta has shot herself. That's one less character to worry about.
Yeah. Um, yeah.
And then the fight kind of just ends right there too.
It does. And it took Jacinta a really long time to turn, given how deep and impressive her wound was.
Oh,
I mean,
I don't
uh,
know. It's just on the arm. She would have to die.
it was
She'd have to
pretty, but
she'd have to get sick and then like the feverish
was it on
thing.
her face though, too?
That was where one of them touched her, which
Oh.
Isabel did say if it's not treated, those can make you turn also. Which
Mm,
because Daryl also got burned on the arm in episode one, season one, and
mm,
Isabel was the one who treated his burn
mm.
when he ended up at the Abbey. Uh, so this little gang in there, they have a motorcycle now, with Daryl and Carol riding on it, and they have a Jeep, and they go to yet another set, like a farm, a rural farmhouse. Falou says this is where they're gonna meet us, and then like rapid off-screen exposition, apparently it's this Scottish couple who are gonna take them to England,
Yep.
who he met at the Demi-Monde. So like this is a quick development that they were like, yeah, we don't need to show it, we'll just do it. I think it mostly works for,
Yeah.
you're
Smart.
expecting them when they show up. They are Scottish. There's a funny joke that Caudron and Falou both say Scottish people can't speak English.
Mm. Yes, that is kind of funny.
Uh, and Falou and Aquila continue to talk and continue to build that relationship to
And again,
its
I was going through this whole episode still. I'm like, okay, they didn't get rid of him in the big battle scene. Is something bad gonna happen now? And yeah, it just kind of they kept me wondering on this front. So
yeah.
and I was happy that it didn't end in a bad way for him.
And
So
honestly, it's kind of one of the best endings for a character in the Walking Dead
right, like
universe.
it's the closest you're gonna get to a happy ending. I mean, it's almost a la Rick and Michonne, right?
Yeah.
He gets, he's been wandering around all alone. He talks about all of his uh the challenges of living in France and how, that was to some extent changed after the apocalypse. And then he gets to actually connect with this person um as quickly as it is, love at first sight and all that, but he ends up deciding to stay behind and build a life with her there in France.
And go looking for her sister Jamila, who they name drop several times. And
Yeah,
not,
which
maybe enough times for us to think they might show up again. I know we keep
I
saying
think
that,
they're
but
going to. I think they have to because of that particular
I mean,
storyline.
honestly, the way things are going by the end of this episode, I wouldn't be surprised if everybody just turns around and goes back and tries to
Right, right,
find
right.
Falou. But I don't think that's how they're going to do it.
Yeah.
Because so Kudron and Daryl also have a conversation in this scene. Finally, this is where they're talking about, Kudron starts off by saying, I'm sorry about what happened to the nun. Daryl says, she's in a better place. And Kudron is like my brother? His name was
Yeah.
Michelle. It was hard to finish him off. I was amazed that Daryl didn't say, yeah, I had to kill my brother too, or my brother's zombie
That's
too.
what I said last time. I thought that there'd be some kind of bonding
He
about
Yeah, that's a missed
Michael.
opportunity for Daryl there. Doesn't isn't there? Like, because Daryl's just like, yeah, I can imagine. He doesn't maybe he doesn't trust Kodron enough to share that painful memory with him. But like both of these guys killed their brother's zombie, that is.
Right. The
Uh
brothers.
it, yeah. And Daryl, so Kodron is like, I never learned how it happened. Can you tell me, like, tell me the story of how you killed my brother? It's a weird
Right.
thing to say, but I guess maybe Kodron is feeling close enough to Daryl that this is fine. And Daryl's like, I didn't do it. I didn't kill him. That girl beat me to it. The skinny girl and the old guy who pretended he was blind. Words to that
Yep.
effect. And Kodron is like incredulous. He's like, wait, all of this? He's like, I was driven to like come and take revenge upon you. Everything I've done, all the deeds that he did, the chase he did through all of France basically to get to Paris. Uh, and now they finally know that it was this girl Maribel. What's cracking, noob? She did it.
I know. And Kudron, like I okay, so Kudron takes this lie and he was like, "Oh, she lied really well." And Daryl's like, "Yeah, I guess that's how she survived or whatever." Yes, she was a good liar. Um, and Kudron's also just kind of not beside himself, but like, "Oh my gosh," and keeps thinking back to all the things that he did to Daryl and all like the path that his vengeance led him upon. And it surprised me that he believed Daryl as readily as he did.
Yeah.
But it was also kind of a fun scene and
Yeah.
him being able like he actually kind of laughs a little bit. Like I cannot believe that I totally fell down this path because of this one ridiculous person that lied to me. Um, but that was kind of a fun scene. And
It
but
it
it's
was
something
very it felt great because of all the times I've been harping on this while you and I have been talking about it. So I liked it for that reason a lot.
well, but then at the end of this episode, it really actually kind of comes back a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
And so does he actually believe Daryl is my question? Because I think maybe he doesn't. And this
Well,
potentially
there's a lot
now,
going on in the in the final scene for everybody, right? Like and some of them seem to be having better trips than others, for sure.
yeah.
Uh so also we have a scene here where Carol is talking to Daryl, also still at this farmhouse. There's a fair amount of dialogue here. And she's like, Ash must be in the Commonwealth by now. Ezekiel is showing them around and Michonne's showing them her katana. No, Judith is showing him a katana. yada yada. And then she cries and says she can't remember what Sophia's face looks like, which
Mhm.
is a very sad thing to acknowledge. And
Right. And
Daryl, go ahead.
she's been seeing Sophia's face, but as a zombie
Right.
for a really long time. So that's the other part. And so yeah, Daryl has a lot of sympathy here. And he is probably the only person that could give her comfort on this front for so many reasons, but also because he was there when all of this happened to Carol, and she doesn't have that really in anybody else. So it's a little bit of a, I don't want to say a gut check, but a reality check because he was there and understood what happened. And I think that she's very hard on herself and still has all this guilt related to this and how she was responsible. And I do think that that's not just about what happens in the apocalypse, but also what happened before with her husband. And she was in that abusive relationship. And there's some implication that he was also abusing the kid too. And so she's got a lot of guilt wrapped up in all of this, and it's all coming back to bite her. And I think that having Daryl there is an incredibly good thing. Um, but he's not exactly a man of many words to give comfort,
You
right?
know, all he really says is we're gonna keep going. That's what we do. Yeah,
Right,
which is okay. Like we could just keep going, but I mean, granted, they're trying to get home. And when she gets home, there will be other people who remember what Sophia's face looks like, hopefully, like Maggie.
right.
And well, Rick and Michonne might be there now, which would be cool. But I know we're not going to get that reunion. Um, oh, but then so that's kind of the end of these scenes at the farmhouse. There's a lot they do a lot of work with these scenes because you get Falou and Aquila hooking up, you get Kodron and Daryl kind of having this moment of, "Whoa, you didn't kill my brother, what the heck?" But now they're like cooler than they were before, and Carol and Daryl also have this moment where uh
Lots resolved in this farmhouse. It's a farmhouse of peace and love.
for real. And then we also have met Angus and Fiona, the Scottish people. And they've established that they have this crate full of goods to give at a checkpoint. Like, so we know that there's some sort of stuff that they're doing to get through to England. How happy were you to see where they were going to get to England?
I
Did you
was
see this?
hoping that this was what it was going to be.
Oh yeah.
But I have more questions than answers as we go through this lovely journey that they take.
Yeah. First question, if I may ask, is so Angus and Fiona came post-apocalypse to France, right?
Right,
That's kind of what they explain around the
right,
campfire, I think. So they've come through the tunnel since Z-Day.
right.
Um, they don't, I don't know if they say how long ago that was, but based on everything we see
Well,
inside
we
the tunnel, it
see.
must have been years.
Right. And so that's interesting. And I don't like that was a part where I was like, oh, because it feels like many, many years, right?
Based on
Um,
decomp and just the
Yeah.
general way that things have developed inside the tunnel.
And they
Yeah.
also say that they have all these people back rel like waiting for them or that there's something like how England is better. But if this is like years and years, like what was keeping them in France all this time? That was just a troubling little niggling hole plot hole that I was like, huh, this is
Yeah,
kind of
these two are not super well developed, but
no.
um and yeah, there's a few questions about them. They so yeah, Falou and Aquila have waited and stayed outside the tunnel. Falou kind of changes his mind at the last second, calls Daryl his brother in arms forever. Kodron translates that for Daryl, and Daryl's like, "Yeah, I thought that's what he said." And it was a really nice moment, and I was really happy for them to walk into the tunnel. I kind of thought the episode and season were going to end
I
right
thought it was
there.
gonna end and it kept going.
They sure did. They kept going into the tunnel, and the next thing we see is they're all scared of bats. And then
Okay,
the bat guano thing. Go
can we
for it.
talk about this? Can we
Yeah.
talk about this? So immediately they see this pile of bat guano and Fiona, it wasn't Fiona who says it. Is it her who
Angus.
Angus may have said it, that it's, oh, don't touch that because it causes hallucinations or
Actually,
whatever.
yeah, one of them said it's psychoactive. I don't know
Yeah,
if that's true,
it
but
is true, actually. But
okay.
if you know that and you're like, okay, there is a ton of this stuff around, and as you're walking in, you see evidence of the fact that maybe some things, people are wearing gas masks and like seem to have killed each other. And even Daryl says that too. Like they get to this checkpoint, there's like decomp people, and Daryl's like, I guess they're not going to get wine. Um, and as they keep continuing in the tunnel, they're seeing more and more evidence of this. I think probably my instinct would be to, hey, maybe we should find some gas masks or get out of this tunnel and figure out how to tackle this because something has happened here that is not something we understand, and it clearly caused this chaos. Like Daryl flat out says they all killed each other.
Yeah, and then
So,
he finds two gas masks and then covers them up again and walks away from them.
right, like what? Um, So that's weird. And then, okay, you all see this, you touched a psychoactive substance, and now you're all starting to have these like kind of blurry, weird interactions. And on top of it, you have some bioluminescence all in the tunnel with the walkers, which is actually a pretty cool effect. And I did like watching how they figured that out with some of the black paint and all that stuff. And they had like full body kind of outfits that they wore to make this look effective. And that was pretty cool. I liked that. But again, these are people that are really smart. They have all survived this far in the apocalypse. They see all the evidence, and but especially Daryl, like, why didn't you just take the gas masks? It was very
Yeah.
upsetting to me. I was really not happy about that. But you
Yeah,
know,
I'm based on some really light Googling too. I'm seeing no evidence that bat guano would make people go completely insane like this. There's like some fungus in it that could lead to respiratory illness, but mostly bat guano is good because it's really rich in it's like a good
fertilizer.
fertilizer. But yeah, so this is a bit of a stretch anyway. However, it gets even stretchier. I was kind of excited to see a British Army checkpoint and a Fortress England sort of thing, Fortress Britain sort of deal, but so it was a bit disappointing. I had shades of 28 Days Later walking up to a British checkpoint, like uh like we got to have in the third act of that movie. So that was a bit of a disappointment. What they start to go insane really fast too. And
Yes.
then when they
Okay.
all start to go insane at the same time, well, actually, it's not quite at the same time. Daryl is affected a little bit later. We never see Fiona having any reaction. None of them are like, let's go back, which seems a little
Right.
odd.
And this seems like pretty fast for this to be happening. So the only thing that I was able to figure out about this is that there's some kind of a fungus that t can cause people to kind of lose it, but it seems like it would be happening over a long amount of time. I don't know that it would happen
Minutes.
in minutes like this. It's not
Yeah.
like that. But anyway, um, this this sort of breakdown of all this is a little, I don't know, a
Yeah.
little convenient, I guess.
Yeah, it happens quickly. Carol basically sees zombie Sophia and follows her through an open or like maintenance access door into a area that is conveniently not full of zombies. The rest of them are fighting despite being insane. I was convinced that one of them was going to shoot another one of them, but that doesn't happen.
I
It,
thought
it
that too. Yep.
it kind of does because Kodron then sees his brother in a zombie, and when Daryl kills the zombie, Kodron goes nuts, attacks Daryl, stabs him actually in the chest, which is kind of insane because Daryl's still wandering around by the end of this episode. He's been stabbed in the chest. He's not even like there's blood on his shirt, like you could tell that he's been stabbed, but he's not at all like they've done no medical attention for this wound by the end of the episode. And then Kodron runs off, right? Like he sees Michelle going down the hallway, and he runs after him. Uh, like Angus and Fiona have kind of disappeared during this part of the action, and Carol is over in her own tunnel, killing a bunch of zombies easily, which is great considering she's hallucinating, and then hugging Sophia and asking if she can go with her. And like I was convinced that at some point she'd be hugging a zombie, but it seems like she wasn't. There was
Yeah, I kept
never.
waiting for that. I'll admit that this was a pretty stressful scene for me to watch because of that. I was like,
Yeah.
what is she hugging? Is this going to be weird? Similarly, when Daryl is having his hallucinations, I was like, oh man, is he going to just like come to and it's not the ghost of Isabel? Of
This has happened in Walking Dead before, right? People have been having hallucinations and then it's a zombie usually,
Right.
where they're having a
That's
dream and it's a zombie tugging their leg or whatever. Yeah.
Right, right. So I thought
Um,
that's where they were going with this. I
but
did,
instead, yeah, he has a really good trip. He gets this, like, he and Carol have great trips.
yep.
They both get to see their loved ones, and they both kind of get to say goodbye to their loved ones.
Hmm.
Because he gets Isabel, who turns into literal fireflies as she walks away.
Yep.
And then he's able to come to. This is after he's been schwacked on the head by Angus. Angus and Fiona have turned on him and the rest of them because there's only two gas masks and math.
Yep.
Um, but they did not know who they were messing with. And once he's got the Firefly power of Ghost Isabel, I'm
Yep.
sorry,
He
Angus and
takes them
Fiona.
in. Angus and Fiona are done for, and he dispatches them very quickly and not with, he doesn't really pause. He's just like, okay, we're done. And
Yeah,
um,
well, like I guess I didn't realize he'd killed Angus with the shovel.
yeah, I
But
did
he
because
had, and Fiona
Fiona
screams and goes
reacts.
nuts. Yeah,
And you know what? Maybe it's the kinder thing because I think it would probably be pretty hard for her to deal with that. So he puts her out of her misery, and then he goes and finds Carol. And it's just him and Carol again, and both of them are just you know, back together again. And it's this moment where they're reunited, and it's them again, and they're like, "All right, let's get through this." And who knows where Kodran is? Again, maybe they'll find him eventually.
he's still
Um,
out there. He goes the direction that they're walking, so I think he has to
yeah.
show up in season three. Oh, one thing we haven't talked about, HA, is the Carol zombie, which
Oh
is
yeah, yeah.
in
So
this
there's that
final
other
fight.
thing. That's weird.
Yeah, it's like it goes from Sophia to suddenly Carol is fighting herself as a zombie.
And that's her, she's she practices a lot of self-loathing, and I think that this is indicative of that.
Yeah.
And she can't bring herself to kill herself, though that was unclear to me, like what exactly happened here, and if it was just a
Yeah,
complete hallucination. Because I thought it was like, because they did show another zombie and she
they
was seeing
did.
herself.
They showed a woman zombie, but who,
So that
yeah.
was, and eventually, I guess they don't really resolve that, except that she somehow the Carol zombie disappears. It's Sophia, and but it seems like she's come to a resolution and some kind of
Yeah.
um forgiveness of herself.
So I guess her
And
trip isn't all good. That's yeah. Daryl has
yeah.
the good trip. Carol has kind of a mixed one, but with like a good final end. And then in the behind the scenes, Melissa McBride is talking about how they had this prosthetic and they've had it since season four when, and here insert gasp, they were planning to kill Carol off in season four.
Yeah, that was an interesting little tidbit.
Now,
I
if you
were
think
like,
back to season four, this is the second season at the prison. This is
yep,
when Carol gets exiled from the prison community
yeah,
for killing Karen and David from Decatur. And yeah, like Rick drives her off to a community and leaves her out there, and then she comes back and saves everybody at Terminus. Is basically how that goes. I wonder though where they were going to kill her off.
yeah, I don't know. But I was sort of like, oh, interesting. So they used the prosthetic in this scene. And yeah, that was kind of that was a revelation.
For real.
And so yeah, we will I guess it's a good thing that they didn't. Uh,
I thought,
but
yeah, I think Nicotero, other than giving people a lot of people when their characters die, maybe he gives them their prosthetics, like we saw
yeah,
with the woman who played Janae. Uh, if I guess if you don't die, he keeps your prosthetics forever.
for use later. Um,
In this
but
case, like 10 years later. Yeah,
yeah, so yeah, this is I was surprised that I thought that this episode was going to end at least three different times before it actually did.
yeah, right.
But I enjoyed it all, and other than the plot holes in this tunnel, which did honestly they still bother me, but I do like where it went and where it kind of ended.
I'd be really excited. I'm really excited to see England if they emerge from the other side of the tunnel.
Yeah,
I had not expected this because of all the talk of
Spain.
Spain. Now
Yeah,
Stephen Merchant makes more sense as as someone who they
yes,
cast for season three.
yes. So that'll be interesting. So I don't know if there's like partially in England, maybe that was like maybe it's in both, but
Yeah.
that'll be
They
interesting to
they
see.
started shooting season three in August in Spain. I don't
Hmm.
know how many parts of Spain look like southern England, maybe a couple in the north, but maybe they can certainly use some shots of France to make it look like England because those two are, both similarly sort of green. Um, just yeah. Either way, I'm excited to see some England in The Walking Dead, and so I don't know how long they'll be there. Maybe they'll just get there, go to a beach, get on a boat, and leave immediately. But that's season two of Daryl Dixon. What's your overall feeling of the season, starting from Mont Saint Michel and leaving through the Channel?
I mean, I really liked the scenery. I liked the journey. I especially liked um, Carol and Daryl are great characters, and and these two actors, Norman Reedus, and Melissa McBride, have great chemistry with each other and a history just because they've been on this show for so long or with this franchise for so long. And I did like how they evolved them. I mean, there's always going to be things that you and I are not excited about, and we talked about some of these, like those plot holes and things like that. Um, I guess my only thought is that there's like a few characters that I wish they hadn't sort of like when you have a really big cast like this, it's very hard to pay attention to everybody. And we saw a little bit of that with Sabine, we saw it with Falou, we saw it with Anna, and kind of trying to jam some stuff in. I guess Falou they did a little bit more with. But I don't know that that helps the show as much, and I think it would have been more interesting to have like scenes between Daryl and Carol addressing some of this stuff. I know that they even say this in the after show of this particular episode, which is that they have a very easy friendship. I don't know that I would term it as that. I think they have an understanding friendship and they have a shorthand with each other. But I think what would be more interesting would be to actually have them communicate about the things that they're going through.
Yeah,
Um,
that's not
it,
Daryl's way.
and it's not, but I think that that would be an interesting evolution. Maybe it may be influenced by Issa and Laurent for that matter. In fact, I think he talks more to Laurent than he has to anybody else in terms of those kinds of feelings and working through things, as much as it pains him and it is difficult for him.
I
But you
agree.
would think that they would try to concentrate on that with Carol, just given the fact that she has flown across the ocean to find him. Um, because that would be a nice payoff, but maybe they're going to do that in the next season. So anyway, but overall, I really enjoyed it. I loved the artistry of this. I thought it was really fun, the different locations. I think the actors were great. I like that Laurent's not annoying. Um,
I agree.
but
I
um,
think with the sets and the cast, a decent story, they put together a really interesting and cool couple of seasons so far with this
yeah, and
French
to
chapter.
me, this is so much more successful than the Negan
So far,
and
we'll see.
and why am I like blanking on uh
Maggie?
Maggie? Yeah, the Negan and Maggie spinoff. But I also think that part of it is because they are able to go to these different places and film in these incredible, I mean, Mont Saint-Michel and Paris and all these cool places are in France. I mean, this is a lot of fun for the audience and I think for them to make it as well, it seems. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what they do next season.
And
Um,
in shots where in episodes where they can go from the Louvre to Mont Saint-Michel,
right.
and they went to
Oh,
the Eiffel Tower, or maybe they were just at that might have been a green screen, but they definitely pulled out all the stops with locations, and so if they can keep doing that, that actually has been a real multiplier for this show in terms of value and like the what you're getting out of it as an audience. It's not just the story and the actors who have been really good too. Like I've been really impressed with the French actors that they've brought on board. um, I would like to see more native language
yes.
speaking. But you know, like with the Anna character, I was at first questioning that, but yeah, she's from Russia, so maybe it just never worked out. And so overall, super enjoyed it too. And so I guess I don't really have anything in addition to add to what you've said. It was a hell of a season, and it worked really well with the previous one. Oh, I guess I do have one the one mini criticism that I do have is the way that they treated these villains as like a revolving door
Yeah,
of baddies. Kodron being the notable exception, although you know he's kind of like a Merle character. He starts off bad, gets good, and maybe he's bad again now. And you don't like I love people characters who live in that kind of gray area. He's also one of the only characters who's consistently been able to kick Daryl's ass.
true.
So that's kind of exciting, and I look forward to seeing what they do with him. And I really like the fact that Falou got a get out of jail free card. They didn't have to kill him off. He got to go and find love, and that was a cool thing that happens very infrequently on this show.
I'm also wondering, since they are going to the UK, um, if we're going to see a little bit of a 28 Days Later London. That'll be pretty cool. But I didn't hear about them filming in London, but maybe
No,
they keep that under wraps. I don't know. It seems kind
maybe
of a hard thing to keep under wraps.
it does,
Uh,
but maybe that's why they've been so upfront and out in the open about shooting in Spain. But yeah,
maybe.
I think I have a feeling that would be hard to cover up.
So.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see.
It just
So
occurred to me, though, that both Daryl and Caudron have this very specific and good relationship with Laurent. So that also may end up being a tension between them at some point if they do reunite or I mean, Laurent right now is out of the picture,
yeah.
so we'll see, but who knows what's going to happen on that front. Maybe Laurent doesn't make it to the US. Maybe he's in the UK because they have to stop for fuel. That is a possibility too, I suspect. Given
Yeah.
given your calculus, Stuart, maybe they will make you happy and show that there was some kind of,
It would have been the smart thing to do. And if
right,
they do that, if they kick some of the gas off the plane and just do little legs, then Carol and Daryl can get on and the whole series is over. But it would be
right.
fun anyway.
So
Um, so that takes us though to the end of Daryl Dixon season two. What a show. What a great time. I think we both really enjoyed it. Hopefully they'll be back again next fall. Well, since they started shooting in August, I assume that they will be back next fall. And that leaves you and I, H.A. Conrad, with a decision to make, which I think might have been preordained by H.A. Conrad's foresight power. Let me see. What are we going to be talking about next time?
I think we are going to be talking about the Radleys, which
Oh my
is
God, how do you do it every time?
the cool Damian Lewis vampire film and Kelly
Yeah,
MacDonald vampire. Sorry, is it a film or a series?
I think it's a movie.
Okay, well, cool. So we will check that out
Cool.
next time. And then there's a bunch of stuff that we're going to be discussing in the upcoming months and weeks. I will watch Silo, but I think I just have to hold off because I can't uh it's hard for me to not go ahead and watch them and then
Yeah,
blend it with what I've watched. So,
I will
are
not
you
watch episode two to stay on track.
all right? All right. It's a deal.
All right. So we will get back together soon, and we hope that you will join us. And if you have any thoughts about Daryl Dixon season two, holler at us. You can email us at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. You can find all of our episodes online at reanimated.podbean.com. We're also on Spotify, where you can listen to the podcast. We're also on YouTube, where you can listen to the podcast. So find us where you need to. Leave us a review if you feel like it. We would appreciate it, but it's not necessary because well, we have day jobs.
Indeed. So until next time, thanks for listening and au revoir.
À bientôt, mes amis. Okay, no more French on the show.
Yeah, and forgive us. Please forgive us. See
Okay,
you
bye
next
bye.
time.